Welcome back to Notre Dame Day. My name is Abby Wellner. I'm from the class of 2005, and I'm joined now by a very special guest, Notre Dame's 16th president, Father Edward Monk Malloy. Thanks so much for being with us here today, Monk. And I have to say, this is a very, very special interview for me because we were just trying to talk, I was trying to count up the years. It's been 13 or 14 years since I was a freshman, but I was in your freshman seminar many moons ago.
One of my all-time greats.
Yeah, thanks so much. I appreciate that. You know what, I'm glad that you said that. My dad's watching, so I think he feels better about the investment right about now. And tell us a little bit about what you've been up to. You've had a few years that you have been out of the presidential spotlight, but that hasn't taken you too far from your roots here at Notre Dame. You're still living in Sorin?
I'm still living in Sorin. I still teach first-year seminar. I'm on 12 boards. I'm finishing volume 3 of my memoir. And I give a lot of talks and do various things for the university, and it's a great life.
So I will not complain in this interview about being busy. Obviously, you've got a lot going on. And we're going to go back a little ways. I want you to tell everyone the story of how you wound up with this nickname that we know you by so well. How did you wind up being called Monk?
I was in the 3rd or 4th grade, and in my neighborhood was a kid named Bunky Collie. And he was a little bit older. His brothers were my age, and we would go by each other on the way to school. And I started calling him Bunk to pretend I had a closer relationship with him than I did. So eventually, he started looking for a comeback, and he tried various possibilities, and he settled on Monk as a rhyme with Bunk and was alliterative with Malloy. So his brothers started calling me that in school. My mother hated it at first, but a couple years later, one of my cousins gave me a much more despicable nickname. So she started calling me Monk, and through athletics primarily. It's stuck with me ever since, and that's the only name I go by now.
Pick the least of the evils, I guess.
That's
Mom
right.
did. All right, and you mentioned athletics. You were a basketball player.
I was.
How did you wind up at Notre Dame? Did that have any role in it?
Well, I was recruited by about 50 to 60 schools. I was on the #1 team in the country in high school. We won my senior year, and the next year they won 55 straight games. So that was a record, and so we got a lot of attention. I came out to Notre Dame for my regular visit, and I really liked the two people who hosted me. I felt comfortable here, and when I went home I said, that's my school.
I think we're all very grateful to those two people who hosted you and made such a good impression for all the good you've done for this university. We're indebted to them for sure. And now you wound up at Notre Dame. Was the priesthood something in the back of your mind at that time, or even at the forefront?
When I was in high school, one of the priests there, who was an Augustinian, suggested that I go in the seminary. I said, I'm not ready. I need to go to college. I want to go away from home. I want to play basketball. But when I was here, I went on a summer service project to Mexico. And we went to a place called Cristo Rey, where there's a big statue of Christ the King. And while I was there, everybody else was distracted. I was looking out over the countryside, and I just had this sense of inner calm. I felt a clarification, a sense of commitment to becoming a priest. Didn't hear voices or see a vision or anything, but kind of a certitude. So my senior year, I consulted with one of the priests and eventually applied, was accepted, and I've never had any doubts that that was what I was called to do.
And did you ever leave the university, or have you been here throughout?
Well, I went to graduate school. We had some of our seminary was in D.C. and some in Minnesota, but then I went to graduate school at Vanderbilt, did my PhD there. But separate from that, and 1 year at sabbatical in California, and then sabbatical after I stepped down as president, I've been here ever since.
And you've made such an impact here on campus, but your impact more recently, and I guess it's been, 7, 8 years since you made a life-saving decision for a member of your own family as well as another person's family to donate a kidney. In 2008, you donated a kidney as part of a swap. Can you tell us a little bit about what that experience was like?
Well, my nephew, Johnny Rorapaw, was seemingly in good health, and all of a sudden he had kidney failure, and he was on dialysis 3 times a week. And his mother, my sister, kept looking for a potential donor, and eventually she said to me, would you be willing to step forward? And I said, I thought I was too old. But anyway, I went forward at Johns Hopkins, went through the rounds of tests. It was interesting, one of the psychiatrists there, who happened to be Jewish, he had to make sure that I had the freedom to make this choice. And so we ended up chatting about the books that I'd written and authors that we shared in common. So I passed muster with him.
He determined you were of sound mind and could make the decision.
Sound mind. and they had a test on religious motivation, which I did okay on.
It would have been bad to fail.
We set a date, and about 3 weeks beforehand, I got a call from one of the doctors, and he said, "How about a swap?" I said, "Why would we want to do a swap?" Because I was compatible with my nephew, and they said, "We have a mother and son who are incompatible with each other, but compatible with you. And if you give your kidney to the mother, who's in her 60s, her son, who's in his 30s, will give it to your nephew, who's in about 40. So your nephew will get a younger kidney, and you'll be able to give it to the mother because you're closer in age." So we did it. We agreed to it. And it was just an amazing experience. We met them before we left the hospital. And everybody's in good health. And so it was a great experience for me. So I used to give a lot of talks on possibility of kidney donation. And the question is, why do we have 2 kidneys when we only need 1? And the answer is so we can give one away.
And you made sure that that proves true. Well, and it's good to know. And you said everyone's doing well. Your nephew is back
Everybody's
to
doing very well. And I can't take pain medicines that have aspirin in them. And I'm not supposed to put salt on anything. Other than that, I've had no repercussions since then.
I guess a small price to pay, and we're fortunate to still have you here on campus, yourself in good health. And not only that, you're still living in Soren, as I understand it. You said 35 years?
35 years.
And that's incredible, living in the same place for 35 years, let alone in a dorm, teaching a class. Why is it important to you that you have this very intimate connection still with the student body here at Notre Dame, that you live among them and teach classes?
I've always loved teaching. I didn't want to give that up. So my first year I didn't teach, the first year as president, and then I figured out my schedule and determined that Sunday night was the best time. And because it was also compatible with doing hall masses in the evening on Sunday. So all my presidential years I taught and lived in the dorm. The trustees had a bet that I wasn't going to last more than 6 months in the dorm after I was elected. I'm still there.
Did that bet compound over the years? Because you're getting to be a wealthy man if that's the case.
Yeah, no, it's part of the mission of Holy Cross, I think. It's kind of our characteristic style to live with the students and to do multiple things simultaneously, try to do them all as well as we can. So that's been my mission in life. And
you've succeeded quite well. Thank you so much, Father Malloy, and it's been a pleasure catching up with you. I could talk to you for hours, but I'm required to toss it back to someone else, so we'll get back to Megan. She's at the anchor desk.